everybody, and welcome back to a brand new Doctor Who video where today I'm discussing the news that came out in an interview this morning with the director of the Centenary special, Jamie Stone, where he gave us a few hints, a few details as to what to expect from Jodie's final regeneration scene. So yes, firstly, before we get into it, just really quickly to say, guys, please do hit that subscribe button if you're new here, and follow me on Twitter at EMS Productions. Got to get the cheeky plugs in quickly, but yeah, if you are new here, please follow me on Twitter or subscribe to the channel. But let's get into the big Doctor Who news. So yes, essentially, it sounds like we are going to be having a change from the tradition of at least New Who, where it seems that Jodie Whittaker's Doctor is not going to regenerate in the Tardis. Now, of course, since 2005, every single regeneration we've seen for Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, and even John Hurt as well, and I guess John Sim as well, or Derek Jacobi regenerating into John Sim, they've all been done in the TARDIS. They've all mostly been, blowing up the TARDIS, well, certainly some of them were, in that same style. And, it's always been cool, it's always been fun, and, give a great last speech to the Doctor, have them in the TARDIS regenerate, and sure, it's good, it works. But it sounds like, from these quotes, that actually Jodie's Doctor is not going to regenerate in the TARDIS whatsoever. Jamie Stone says that we shot the last ever scene in the TARDIS and said goodbye to the TARDIS, and then there were some tears. And then we went out to film, basically, her regeneration. And the last shot that we did, I think, will be the last shot in the episode as well. So it's really nice to do things in sequence. So there it says that, they went and shot some scenes in the TARDIS, so like the penultimate scene of the Centenary special is presumably set in the TARDIS. It sounds like it's set with Jodie and Mandip, which is also very intriguing, and I'll come to that in a second. But then it sounds like they've then travelled over to a different location for Jodie's final scene, her final regeneration moment, a big speech and whatever. That's actually where this story ends, rather than in the TARDIS, which is something we're so used to. So of course the question will be, how is that all going to play out, and what exactly is going to happen with it? I'm unsure. I think it's a very, very interesting idea. I personally really like the idea of doing something different, giving, more scale, giving something more visually interesting than just doing in the TARDIS for the 6th time in a row or whatever that we've seen up until this point. So, the opportunity to go to a forest or into a city or somewhere to have Jodie regenerate, I think is a really, really exciting prospect, and I think could really add to the end of that Centenary special. Of course, exactly why she's ending up leaving the TARDIS, I don't know. Maybe she's piloting the TARDIS to one last location she needs to get to just as she's about to die, and then gets out of the TARDIS rather than in the TARDIS to actually have that moment of regeneration. Maybe something like that. Of course, as I mentioned, it's notable that Jamie Stone, the director, describes Mandip being involved in those very final scenes. It's unclear whether she's in the scene where the Doctor actually regenerates, or whether it's just in those final few scenes in the TARDIS. I don't really know. I mean, it does suggest, firstly, that Mandip, or Yaz's character, does not die in this special. I guess maybe she still could, but if they're filming scenes in the TARDIS that are very, very near the end of this story, and she's still alive and there with the Doctor, that's quite interesting. I guess, it could be a Amy moment from Matt Smith's regeneration where it's not really her. I don't know. Could be something like that. But that's quite interesting, and certainly gives us even more questions as to exactly what's going to happen with Mandip or Yaz's character at the end of the era. Like, I can't imagine Jodie walking out the TARDIS to, let's just say, a forest or something, and having her big speech and regeneration moment, and Yaz just kind of being there. Like, I don't really see, because everything suggests that Yaz is not going to continue on into the RTD era. I don't see it would make any sense for her to continue. So I don't see how she could be at that point. Maybe the Doctor's going to drop her off somewhere before then going off to regenerate. I don't know. Maybe that could be somewhere some of the final TARDIS scenes are. It's a real unknown and throws up, various different questions. And the other big notable thing which I've seen people talking about is the fact that Jamie says that the final shot they filmed out wherever Jodie is regenerating, he thinks is going to be the final shot of the episode. He comments on how great it was to actually film stuff in sequence, so the final shot they filmed was the final thing that's going to be in the episode. But of course that, is notable because normally the final scene of a regeneration story would feature the new Doctor. Now, everything that we know, all the hints and suggestions we've had, suggest that when this episode was shot, the 14th Doctor was not cast. Now, we know, for starters, we know that Russell T Davies was officially announced at the end of September last year, and it's pretty clear from some of the hints we've had that it wasn't a long lead time into that happening and being announced. It really was in, August and September was when that was all getting finalised. So it's exceptionally unlikely that when Russell T Davies was announced as the new showrunner, that the Doctor had been cast. Like, he said that it wasn't, and, sure, he could be lying, but also the other things all suggest that the Doctor was not cast around that time. Now, of course, the Centenary special, filming wrapped on that in October of last year. So only, you know, a couple of weeks or so after Russell T Davies was announced as returning was when they wrapped on production for the Centenary special and the whole of the Jodie Whittaker era. That strongly suggests, particularly if Jamie Magnus Stone is saying the final shot of this episode is something that he shot on location with, you know, in the Regeneration scene. If the new Doctor hasn't been cast, you obviously can't have one. You can't have filmed with him. So that, to me, strongly suggests that this episode is going to end with maybe, you know, Jodie's face exploding into golden regeneration energy. But actually, we're not going to see the new Doctor at the end of the Centenary special. Now, I'm unsure how I feel about that concept, if that does indeed play out. Like, I kind of like the idea, the mystery and the excitement of not yet seeing that new Doctor and having to sort of leave it on a cliffhanger in that sense. I think that's quite cool. But the problem is, the thing is, the only reason that would really work and have the real impact you want it to is if you didn't know who the new Doctor was going to be. Now, the thing is that everything suggests, all the rumours, all, you know, little leaks and hints suggest that production, as in pre-production on the RTD era, has already started, and that filming is most likely going to begin around May, June time of this year, sort of late spring, early summertime is probably when they're going to start filming stuff. Of course, as soon as you start filming, it's going to leak who the new Doctor is, if they haven't already announced it. You know, you cannot go out on location with the 14th Doctor and it not leak. That's just not going to happen, and that's terrible marketing for the BBC if they don't choose to announce it. So pretty clearly, in the next 3 or 4 months, they're going to announce who the 14th Doctor is, whether it's David Tennant or whether it's somebody new. And if that is the case, then it doesn't really, you know, make much. There's almost not that much point to having it end on a cliffhanger and Centenary special, because we know, oh, well, she's just going to regenerate into that person and we'll just see that person in the next episode. Like, there's nothing that significant about it. So that's where I'm like slightly unsure as to whether there's really any point or benefit to, you know, having the episode end on a cliffhanger halfway through Jodie's regeneration, which certainly sounds like the current plan and where they've filmed up to. Of course, because they've shot this out on location somewhere, it does mean it's entirely possible to take the new Doctor out to that location and film the other half of the regeneration and stick that on to the end of the Centenary special. That's definitely a possibility and something they could incorporate into the story if that's, you know, the approach they want to take to it. You know, wherever that may be. I mean, I personally quite like it if this final location that Jodie goes to regenerate would be the forest from her reveal clip from the Wimbledon moment in 2017 when she was first announced. I just think it'd be a really fun and a really great sort of, you know, going full circle moment if, you know, 5 and a bit years on from revealing her in that forest, let's say goodbye to her in that forest. I think that'd be great, but I don't know if they've done that or not. But yeah, it's entirely possible they could go back and film the other half of it there with the new Doctor, but whether that would be incorporated in the Centenary special or whether that'll be held over to the 60th or they'll do something completely different with it, I just don't know. But certainly this gives us a few hints and poses some more interesting questions about the Centenary special and exactly how the end of Jodie Whittaker's era of Doctor Who is going to play out. I'm very excited to see how it all actually happens. You know, now we've had this hint that it's going to be a different location. I'm really intrigued to see where it's going to be. Is it going to be some big grand place, or is it going to be, you know, just a quiet set? I mean, I don't really see why they would have said they went off somewhere else if it was a set, because the sets would all be at Rothlock Studios in Cardiff, where obviously the Tardis set would be, you just pop over to another set. So the fact he describes it as going off somewhere else strongly suggests to me that it's a location shoot. Again, I'm surprised. I'm impressed that that didn't leak if that was the case and they shot her last scenes on location. It must have been a pretty private location to be able to do that. And yet this presents yet more questions about the role of the 14th Doctor in the Centenary special. Is then the next episode of Doctor Who, the Centenary special, actually going to pick up straight off the back of that episode? Or are we going to have a gap? Is that why we're going to have that cliffhanger regeneration and then the next story will just start with a new Doctor and we'll have that gap in there? That also is a possibility, something like what we saw with Christopher Eccleston when he just was the Doctor at the start of Rose. Maybe that's the route the approach they're going to take. I just think it's really, really intriguing and poses lots of interesting questions. But guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories on how you think those final moments of the Jodie Whittaker era and the potential for it extending into the 14th Doctor, how do you think that's all going to play out? I want to hear what you guys have got to say in the comments down below. But that's just about it from this video, guys. As I said, please hit that subscribe button and that like button, and I will see you again very, very soon for a brand new video. But until then, it's goodbye.